Well, good morning. As many of you know, the Ombudsman's annual report is traditionally published around the end of June, coinciding with the end of the school year. It is apropos that at the same time, Ontario students are receiving their report cards apprising them of their successes and failures. So too does the Government of Ontario learn of how well it is performing in key service delivery sectors. Throughout the year, I issue special reports that make findings and recommendations following investigations of systemic issues. These special reports are given lively titles that speak strongly of themes that have emerged during a specific investigation. In contrast, the annual report has no title, though I was tempted to label this one the year of overpromising and under-delivering. I'm referring to what has become all too familiar and rampant refrain among government organizations. On the one hand, the actions of a ministry, agency, board, or commission are decried as shabby or incompetent. On the other, the reaction from the organization is to sideline the issue and proclaim itself world-class, or as an international leader, as if erecting a sign saying, "I'm the best and the greatest," will assuage those who have suffered from neglect and maladministration. The bureaucracy's credibility is dying a slow death by an affliction of hyperbolitis that is creating legions of disillusioned citizens who see through what is essentially a disingenuous smokescreen. It has not escaped the people of Ontario that the strongest leadership shown by many key government bureaucracies has been in making up puffed-up promises. The Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, for instance, bragged that it was a, quote, global leader in property assessment, until our investigation found it was actually an arrogant, cutthroat agency with little regard for homeowners. We exposed similar illusions or delusions held by the Family Responsibility Office, the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, and the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, all of which presented a proud public face for years, when in reality they were callously ignoring the suffering of the very people that they, as public servants, were obliged to serve. Quand il y a un gouffre entre ce qu'on promet et ce qu'on donne, la confiance du public est perdue. Ce gonfler d'importance est antithétique à l'ouverture et la transparence du gouvernement, corrosif pour la confiance du public et même nuisible à une vraie démocratie. La situation est donc grave quand des ministères, des organismes gouvernementaux font des promesses qu'ils ne peuvent pas ou ne veulent pas tenir, ou quand ils essaient de masquer leurs échecs par des déclarations ostentatoires. When there is a gulf between promise and delivery, public trust is squandered. Puffery is antithetical to open and transparent government, corrosive of public trust, and harmful to meaningful democracy. It is therefore serious business when governments and agencies make promises they cannot or will not keep, or attempt to paper over these failings with ostentatious claims. I'm happy to report, however, that the public response to our investigations by the government has been phenomenal. These organizations affected have recommitted to serving the public interest. The government has accepted every one of my recommendations, and the changes that have resulted from those recommendations have affected millions of Ontarians, from lottery players to crime victims to family support recipients. There's also some good news to report about tackling outbreaks of rhinitis and other similar bureaucratic infections that sometimes blind public servants to common sense. My office has seen encouraging cases where bureaucrats were able to find creative solutions to people's problems. This report details several of those cases, as well as some investigations where senior government officials were cooperative and proactive. We were able to resolve issues quickly without even publishing a report. The bad news, I regret to say, lies in the opportunities that the government missed. I'm speaking of opportunities to extend the benefits of independent oversight to all citizens of Ontario, in all areas where provincially funded institutions touch their lives, including the so-called MUSH sector. Ontario remains the only province in Canada where citizens cannot turn to the Ombudsman if, for example, they have a problem with children's aid societies. The situation is similar for hospitals, long-term facilities, school boards, or police. My office heard complaints from thousands of people every year about these crucial publicly funded services. But we are powerless to help them. The government could change this, but this past year it expressly chose not to. It repeatedly turned down legislative opportunities to remove these institutions from their zones of immunity. This is a downright embarrassing situation for Ontario. All is not well in the MUSH sector, yet Ontario is dead last of all provinces in providing independent oversight of these institutions. Millions of Ontarians are at the mercy of this special kind of big brother. The hospitals, long-term care facilities, children's aid societies, and the like are cleverly disguised as private entities and are deemed off-limits to proper checks and balances. Big Brother has his hand firmly planted in our back pocket, government revenues his lifeline, unaccountability his refuge. Ontario is shamefully a have-not province in this regard. That said, I remain hopeful that one day soon, the government will be attuned enough to this important issue of accountability to do the right thing and open up these institutions to the same scrutiny as every other public service in the province.